of graphite and diamond. Newton's association, but impurities will make them appear blue, sky blue, light yellow, red, or black. Their density is 3.15 Newton's association of an apple falling to the ground with the concept of universal gravitation is a result. So it is with life. If the life's non-material structure is different, then it can be transformed from one form of life into another, and a human may be transformed into a celestial being or a Buddha. We can regard humans as graphite, while celestial beings and Buddhas as diamonds. If the consciousness of a human is out of order, they will likely devolve towards lower life. If the consciousness of a human is in order, they will likely evolve toward a higher life. I have obtained the secrets of transforming humans into celestial beings and Buddhas, and I am aware of how to do this with self-cultivation and self-refinery. As long as one follows my guidance strictly, they will become a celestial being or a Buddha and reach the high-level space of life. This is assured. Associative thinking. Being able to grasp a particular phenomenon in the natural world, and then through that phenomenon, draw analogies, make inferences, and establish connections with other related factors is called associative thinking. The most typical example of associative thinking is Newton, apple, universal gravitation. Newton, observing the common natural phenomenon of an apple falling to the ground, associated it with gravity. From gravity, he made connections to factors such as mass, velocity, and spatial distance, and subsequently derived the three laws of motion. This is an example of associative thinking. The phenomenon of swirling water in a bathtub drain can be associated with the direction of Earth's magnetic field lines. The spiraling ascent of a bean vine can be associated with the direction of celestial bodies' movement. The natural phenomenon of wood floating and iron sinking on the water surface can be associated with buoyancy and the shipbuilding industry. The discontinuity observed in certain events can be associated with quantum mechanics. The concepts of motion, mass, and gravity can be associated with the curvature of space-time. The role of consciousness can be associated with the holographic nature of the universe, and so on. All of these examples fall under the category of associative thinking. A qualified detective can deduce the character traits, motives, and whereabouts of the parties involved from the smallest clues. A qualified forensic expert can infer the physical characteristics, facial expressions, and even the appearance and attire of the perpetrator from the victim's injuries and facial expressions. A qualified traditional Chinese medicine practitioner can identify internal organ disorders based on a patient's complexion. A qualified fortune teller, based on a person's facial features, can make predictions about their past actions, future fortunes, and misfortunes. A qualified feng shui master can assess the quality of a person's living environment based on their handwriting and habitual movements. A qualified politician can anticipate a dynasty's transition and the arrival of a new era based on common psychological and behavioral patterns among people. A qualified economist can predict stock market fluctuations, the future economic development of a company or a nation based on specific events. A qualified sociologist can associate the prevalence of prostitution, drug use, and organized crime with the loss of a nation's belief systems and moral values. Even a fashion designer can envision future clothing trends based on popular colors and the pace of people's footsteps on the streets. Associative thinking possesses qualities of originality, inventiveness, novelty, and uniqueness. It is a divergent thinking process. Many people may appear to have associative thinking, but in reality, they are merely applying the associative knowledge of others or drawing from long-standing experiential summaries. For example, many farmers can relate the changing seasons to spring plowing, summer growth, autumn harvest, and winter storage. However, this is not the result of their own associative thinking, but a reflection of their accumulated experiences in their conscious minds. Similarly, many individuals can associate joint pain with changes in weather, which is the effect of knowledge and experience rather than the result of associative thinking. Many businessmen make decisions on what goods to import or export based on regional differences, timing variations, and seasonal variations. Again, this is a result of experience, with few exceptions. When we look at the professions of engineers, technicians, experts, scholars, ordinary detectives, doctors, economists, and others, it may seem like their work relies on associative thinking. However, in reality, they are simply applying the knowledge or experience acquired from education or accumulated through their work. For instance, Newton's association of an apple falling to the ground with the concept of universal gravitation is a result of associative thinking. But if a college student claims to associate an apple falling to the ground with universal gravitation, they are merely stating the knowledge they have learned, recounting Newton's discovery, rather than expressing their own associative thinking unless they have never heard of Newton or were unaware of the concept of gravity. Strictly speaking, associative thinking refers to the type of thinking that leads to new discoveries, inventions, creations, and theories. In this sense, individuals who possess associative thinking are primarily scientists, inventors, forensic experts, traditional Chinese medicine practitioners, fortune tellers, feng shui masters, exceptional politicians, military strategists, and engineers or technicians who can develop new products to some extent. The individuals who primarily drive the slow progression of human civilization are those who possess the ability of associative thinking. Without them, the civilized society we have today would not exist. Materialistic thinking is rigid thinking, while associative thinking is divergent thinking. It breaks free from the rigidity of materialistic thinking and surpasses the imitation and copying of image thinking. It directly extends its tentacles into unknown territories, leading to new discoveries and inventions and finding new pathways. However, associative thinking still falls far short of truly grasping the profound mysteries of the universe. I can see this point from the thinking of great scientists such as Newton, Einstein, Planck, Hawking, and others. I also see it in the efforts of scientists attempting to establish a unified field theory of the universe. For the entire human race, I hope to see a significant emergence of individuals with associative thinking abilities. This is because when it comes to transporting a 6-ton cargo from point A to point B, which is 800 kilometers away, an individual with associative thinking can simply drive a heavy truck and complete the task in a day. On the other hand, if we rely on individuals with material thinking, even if each person can carry 50 kilograms and walk 100 kilometers a day, it will still require 120 people and 8 days to accomplish the task. This approach would be wasteful, laborious, and inefficient. As for individuals with image thinking, they simply cannot achieve this task. From an artistic perspective, image thinking may be greater than material thinking. However, from a practical standpoint, when one is hungry, a steamed bun can provide sustenance, whereas a picture of a bun, no matter how realistic, cannot solve practical problems. For Life Genuine members, I hope that everyone does not limit their thinking to associative thinking because associative thinking is still a lower-level form of thinking. It's like the situation where information needs to be exchanged between the two shores of the Atlantic Ocean. Materialistic thinkers would build ships and send people across, imagery-based thinkers would lay undersea cables, and associative thinkers would use radio waves. However, our approach is changing in tune with the cyclical evolution of the universe. Xiefeng. That year, my son was 15. We lived at 10 Forest Road, in a detached house surrounded by 63 different plants. Among them was a tree emitting a peculiar and strong fragrance after dinner during the flowering seasons. The scent wafted through the courtyard, drifted into the dining room, living room, bedroom, permeating our nostrils, seeping into our organs and minds, intoxicating and enchanting us. That evening after dinner, I strolled with my child in the courtyard, standing under this divine tree, whose name I still do not know, and began a lecture for my son. Here is what I shared with him back then. Son, since you were 3, I've been teaching you about life. For the past 3 years, every Wednesday evening has been our designated father-son exchange. I may lack the ability to provide you with abundant material wealth. Instead, I'm passing on the little wisdom inherited from your great-grandmother and grandfather and some traditional virtues of the Chinese nation that I've come to understand. Over these 3 years, I've taken you to the Jehovah's Witness Church every Sunday, exposing you to their teachings to make you aware of what's missing in Chinese culture. Your future insights will rely on your perception. Read some books that are not books, like this tree. It's a book. Let's read it now. Son, Dad, how do we read this tree? Child, this tree is a book encompassing everything. Imagine how it grows, what sustains it, its origin, why its leaves are green, why it only blooms once a year, why its leaves and flowers have distinctive shapes. What force is behind this uniqueness? Tonight, let's not discuss anything else, only explore why this tree emits fragrance only at specific times. What can this phenomenon teach us? Son, Dad, is it trying to tell us it adheres to a governing law? You truly are your father's good son, clever with high comprehension. What else do you think is also governed by a law? Son, it seems all plants and flowers follow a law. When spring arrives, they sprout, bloom, and grow. When winter comes, they wither, decay, and hide. This happens every year. Reasonable. What else is bound by a law? Son, seems like weather changes are also governed by a law. Zimbabwe has dry and rainy seasons. During the dry season, rain does not fall for months. When the rainy season arrives, it starts raining. Midway through the rainy season, thunder and lightning occur frequently, accompanied by heavy rains. This happens every year. Anything else? Son, the moon also seems to be governed by a law. Otherwise, we wouldn't have regular full moons and new moons. Anything else? Son, Dad, are not people also constrained by a law? I do not have a beard now, but you do. You didn't have a beard at my age. When I'm your age, I'll surely have a beard. Isn't this something we cannot control, Dad? Absolutely right, child. What else is bound by a law? Son, can't remember. Child, everything in the universe is bound by laws, like an invisible vast net covering everything. From celestial bodies' movements to insects' reproduction, from tides' ebb and flow to roosters' crowing, everything is within this net. Nothing escapes it. Son, is this net like the palm of the Buddha? You can understand it that way. Son, Dad, since everything is governed by laws, does that mean everything in my life is inevitably constrained by laws? Can I skip school tomorrow? Silly child, trying to stump Dad? I patted his head then, and the child smiled shyly. Since everything is bound by a law, you must go to school. You do not have a choice. Just like when you're hungry, you must eat. Or when your bladder is full, you must urinate. Son, then when can I have control over myself? Haven't I lost my freedom? Child, this delves into something deeper. Firstly, we need to seek out and understand the laws. Without knowing the laws, one's life remains bewildered, confused, and unclear. Everyone believes they are acting according to their own will, but in reality, they strictly adhere to established procedures in their actions and speech. Whether it's Jesus, Buddha, Hitler, or Mao Zedong, it's all the same. Son, Dad, the more you talk, the more confused I get. Child, seeking and understanding laws are one thing. Following them is another. For example, if you discover the law of seasonal changes, you should consider adapting to those changes. When winter is approaching, you should think about how to survive the cold. Are your winter clothes prepared? Is the heating equipment effective? And so on. Farmers aiming for a good harvest must prepare seeds, fertilizers, tools according to seasonal changes and sow, water, weed, fertilize, and harvest on time. Missing the season means no harvest. Discovering the law enables us to grasp the cyclic evolution of the law. Like geese flying north and south, a comet returning every 76 years, women menstruating, and societal cyclic upheavals. Mastering the cyclic nature of laws tells us what to seek and what not to seek in life. Son, Dad, you said that we have no control over everything. So what should I pursue and what should I not pursue? Can I have control over that? This involves whether we have mastered the laws and their cyclical evolution. If we are completely ignorant of the laws and their cyclical nature, we are always out of control, just like mice that must inevitably dig holes or bees that inevitably gather nectar to make honey. However, if we have mastered the laws and their cyclical evolution, we have control over ourselves. The more laws we comprehend, the more freedom we have. Son, so, people should first seek and understand laws. But how many laws are there in the universe? Child, the laws in the universe are endless, like the vastness of the ocean's waters. Son, Dad, with so many rules, when will we ever find them? It seems impossible to grasp them in a lifetime. Plus, we still need to eat, go to school, work, sleep. There is not enough time. Child, it's true that it seems difficult, and it is indeed difficult. However, saying it's not difficult means it's not. I have a trick. Once you master it, you can navigate effortlessly through endless changes. If I were to place you in a space where the sky is not the sky, where there's no distinction between up and down, how would you find your way out from there? If there's a cycle of significant change in this universe every 5,000 years, how could we escape it? Son, Dad, the universe is unfathomable, and it seems like you are too. But it's already past 10, and I have school tomorrow. Can I go to bed now? Child, school is important. Let's stop our conversation here for tonight. I patted my child's head again, and the child smiled shyly. Close one door, and others will open automatically. Siefing. Many movie theaters, auditoriums, conference halls, and such have multiple entrances and exits. After watching a movie, all the doors in the cinema open, but we can only choose one to leave. One person cannot exit through two doors simultaneously. Similarly, one cannot enter through two doors at once. There are 36 doors in the universe, but available for humans, there are only 12. We can only choose one. We cannot simultaneously pick several doors. The 12 doors available for human entry and exit remain open at all times. They never close. We have the power to choose at any moment. However, once we choose one door, the other 11 automatically close. Similarly, when we close one door, the remaining 11 doors open automatically. It's like going to an airport to board a plane. Dozens of planes wait on the tarmac for passengers. We can only choose one. We cannot fly on two or several planes simultaneously. Likewise, a high school graduate who passes the university admission score has dozens of universities to choose from. They can only make selections from the list and ultimately enter one university. They cannot study at several schools simultaneously. The saying, "A man fears choosing the wrong profession, a woman fears marrying the wrong man," implies this philosophy. If we regard Tao, virtue, law, benevolence, righteousness, rituals, wisdom, credibility, and magical art as doors within the human value system, we also face the issue of choice. Moreover, it's a situation where we can only choose one, unable to possess them all. If we choose Tao, virtue becomes void. If we choose virtue, law is forfeited. If we opt for law, benevolence is sacrificed. If we choose benevolence, righteousness is relinquished. If we prefer righteousness, rituals are forsaken. If we choose rituals, wisdom diminishes. If we opt for wisdom, credibility is forfeited. If we select credibility, magical art is relinquished. Conversely, choosing magical art means no credibility. Choosing credibility means no wisdom. Choosing wisdom means no rituals. Choosing rituals means no righteousness. Choosing righteousness means no benevolence. Choosing benevolence means no law. Choosing law means no virtue. Choosing virtue means no Tao. Regarding this, 99% of people might disagree, thinking Tao, virtue, law, benevolence, righteousness, ritual, wisdom, credibility, and magical art are like 9 dishes on a banquet table, and individuals can freely pick and choose. If one holds this view, he fails to grasp understanding of the contradictory nature among these 9 dishes. Some may believe they can perfectly embody both Tao and virtue, which is impossible. Having Tao would inevitably mean lacking virtue, and possessing virtue would surely mean lacking Tao. If someone claims to have both Tao and virtue, then the Tao they possess must be a facade, a false front. The complexity of human history lies here, and the root cause of human confusion resides here. Please contemplate this on your own. Closing one door automatically opens several others. Opening one door automatically closes others. Choosing death, the door to life automatically closes. Opening the door to life, the door to death automatically closes. The key is to be clear about which door you are currently in. Once you become a farmer, you have no connection with being a worker. If you become a thief, you cannot become an upright gentleman. If you become a corrupt official, you are no longer a representative of the people. If you become a prostitute, you cannot be called a lady. Many people know which door they are in, and they are aware of the difficulties in their current door. However, they lack the courage to close it, fearing that once closed, there will be no door to enter. In fact, Such concerns are unnecessary. There are only 12 doors of life, speaking only in terms of human existence, and there are countless paths in life. Regardless of which path you take, eventually, you will enter one of the 12 doors of life. All roads lead to Rome, but not all roads lead to heaven. Many paths lead to hell. It's time to choose which door to enter. Delaying decisions will only lead to lifelong regrets. Life at Genuine is one such door, primarily leading to the 1,000-year world. Time brings changes in fortune. Xiefeng. All things await their opportune moment to act. When it arrives, greenery flourishes, insects take flight, solid ice melts, thunder is born. When the time has not come, no storms brew, flowers lack buds, gold appears as iron, and even geniuses seem mediocre. All things await their moment to act. When it arrives, injustices are revealed, secrets come to light. The scenery changes from fortune to misfortune. When it's not time, the oxen bully the tigers, cats fear mice, diligent studies go unnoticed, exceptional talents seem worthless. Time, geographical advantage, supportive people, time takes precedence. Even with remarkable talent and ambitions spanning the universe, without favorable timing, one can only sip the northwest wind. Even with a heart of passion, without opportune timing, one's efforts find no outlet. Time brings changes in fortune. Without opportune timing, fortunes do not change. Even with full seeds, they'll lie dormant underground. Even with brilliant minds, they'll reside in obscure places. Even with perfect plans, they'll gather dust. Even with resounding voices, they'll only shout in vain. At the right moment, in the turning of fortunes, the ugly duckling may become a white swan. A cowherd leads 1,000,000 valiant soldiers. A golden phoenix emerges from a mountain nest, and barren lands transform into lucrative markets. Those who bowed their heads lift them high, while those who once held their heads high bow their heads. For some, wealth flows in abundantly, and their career paths are clear. For others, they stumble and face poverty and illness. The heavens have their fortune, nations have theirs, individuals too. If the heavens' fortune falters, so does a nation's, and thus an individual's. If a nation's fortune wanes, it's hard for an individual's fortune to turn. Grass and trees know their seasons. In spring, they thrive. Wise individuals discern opportune moments and create grand achievements in due time. Failing to act when necessary leads to missed opportunities and bad luck. Inappropriately, forcefully, or foolishly acting when one should not turn good fortune into misfortune. Sprouting in winter leads to inevitable demise. Budding in autumn leads to fruitlessness. Sprouting in spring is opportune. Time is fortune. When time brings change, it might be favorable or adverse, depending on one's perception. Time, ever-changing, constantly seeks auspicious winds and timely rains, seeking prosperity for the nation, peace for the people, and harmony throughout the world. With everyone's well-being, there comes good fortune. In the face of widespread misery, personal good fortune is elusive. Fortune is transformative. Apparent good fortune may be substantial misfortune, and apparent misfortune may be substantial good fortune. If heaven intends to grant people good fortune, it might first befall them with misfortune. If heaven intends to bring misfortune to people, it might bestow apparent good fortune first. Whether it is calamity or fortune, it all depends on one's own perspective. 3 elements constitute fortune: life structure, genes, gestation period, and timing. Life structure determines the broad trajectory of fortune. An egg can only hatch into a chick, not into an eagle. A dragon begets a dragon. A phoenix begets a phoenix. A mouse's offspring dig holes. We cannot grow into corn. Ordinary people cannot become geniuses. Not all cowherds can command 1,000,000 soldiers. Not all music students become Bach, Beethoven, or Mozart. Not all compassionate individuals become Jesus, Buddha, or Muhammad. Not all college dropouts become Bill Gates. The transformation of fortune requires a gestation period. 10 months pregnancy leads to 1 day of childbirth. Peach trees take 3 years. Apricots take 4, and walnut trees need 18 years to bear fruits. Without or insufficient gestation, even with opportune timing, fortune is hard to transform. Inspiration favors the contemplative, Opportunities embrace the prepared mind, and miracles do not happen on the desert of the soul. Those who eagerly await good fortune must accumulate the basic materials in that direction. Waiting aimlessly will not bring good fortune. All preparations ready, just waiting for the east wind. Only with complete preparation can one utilize the east wind. Without readiness, even with the wind blowing, the fire cannot burn at Chibi. Similarly, without the wind rising, all prior preparations are meaningless. Therefore, good fortune also depends on timing. The 5th, 9th, 11th, 14th, 16th, 17th, 34th, 53rd, and 56th hexagrams of the Book of Changes primarily discuss cultivating and awaiting the opportune moment, awaiting changes in fortune. The cart travels on the road. The horse runs on the track. People walk on paths. Immortals tread immortal paths. Without changing the trajectory of life, a dog remains a dog, and commoners remain commoners. Even when the time comes, it only smooths the trajectory but does not change it. It means that people cannot become immortals. To transition from the trajectory of a human life to that of an immortal, one needs to foster the structure of an immortal life, then step into the immortal path at the opportune moment. Times are changing. Take the opportune moment. The era of networking, combined with the consciousness of the new age, acts as a catalyst for transforming one's life fortune. Today, the information we receive in a day surpasses that of an entire year in the past. Old systems are gradually disintegrating, even collapsing. The times create heroes, and the consciousness of the new age shapes higher dimensional lives. When the time comes, seize the opportunity, align with the international system. Embrace the lifestyle of the immortals, and in doing so, great fortune awaits. Consciousness can hear the voice of the greatest creator. Xiefeng. In the vast universe, there are billions and trillions of voices, each expressing their own thoughts. As long as we use spiritual perception, consciousness, to listen, we can hear them. Common sense tells us that hearing relies on ears, and without ears, we cannot hear any sound or better understand the intentions of others. However, I advise we discard common sense and explore whether we can hear without ears. Let's start with an example. Helen Keller, an American blind writer, hailed by the Encyclopedia Britannica as one of the most accomplished representatives of disabled individuals in history. She embodied blindness, deafness, and muteness in one person. Despite being deaf, she could hear the voices of others, not through her ears but through touch. She would place her index finger on the speaker's lips, her middle finger on their nose, and her thumb on their throat, enabling her to hear their voice clearly. By placing her hand on a violin, she could hear the melodies played on it. This fact demonstrates that we can understand the voices of others even without using our ears. We can hear through the sense of touch. People with arthritis, as long as they pay attention, can be the first to hear the sound of climate change. When the river water warms up, ducks are the first to know, and sunlit flowers and trees meet spring early. The sounds of spring are first heard by certain animals and plants. Listening can be categorized into 3 levels. Using ears to listen is the primary level, using senses to listen is the second level, and using spiritual perception, consciousness, to listen is the highest level. What ears hear are the appearances of things. What senses hear are the processes of things. What consciousness hears are the essences of things. If someone says, "I love you," and you hear it with your ears, you perceive a sweet and pleasant sound, which is the superficial aspect. However, if you can feel the sound of love, then love has taken on a process. And if you can hear the sound of love with your consciousness, that love becomes a selfless and enchanting love. The love heard with ears is fleeting, the love sensed is enduring, and the love heard with consciousness is eternal. The supreme love is silent. To generalize further, the sounds heard with ears are often illusory. The sounds sensed are a mixture of reality and illusion, difficult to discern truth from falsehood, while the sounds heard with consciousness are genuine. The loudest sound is silence. The sound of silence can only be heard through consciousness. When a strong wind blows across the wilderness, we can hear the sound of the wind with our ears. When a gentle breeze passes through the wilderness, we can perceive the sound of the wind through our senses. However, there are countless sounds of the wind that we cannot hear with our ears or perceive with our senses. We need to use spiritual perception, consciousness, to listen. On a hot day, if you can quiet your mind and listen with consciousness to the sound of the Arctic's icy landscapes, you will immediately feel cool. On a cold night, if you can hear the sound of the flowing lava from a volcanic eruption, you will not feel cold. In this statement, there's a fundamental difference between what's imagined and what's actually perceived with consciousness. For instance, during hunger, envisioning eating lavish dishes doesn't solve the hunger issue. Yet, when consciousness is used to simulate eating, the sensation of hunger isn't felt. This pertains to a matter of different levels. If one exercises consciously, like Helen Keller did, they will discover many natural mysteries. On a calm, windless night, you raise your palm and feel in all directions. You will notice a cool breeze coming from certain directions and a warm gust from others. Over time, your palm will be able to discern the sound of any object, whether it's directed towards mountains, rivers, trees, flowers, houses, cars, people, or tables. You can hear their sounds. For example, when you hold your palm against a thin book rolled up in your hand, you can sense its essence. Some books emit warmth, others coolness, while some books have no discernible temperature. If you can't feel anything, the reason lies not in the material itself, but in the lack of conscious training within yourself. It's like an ordinary piece of iron that lacks magnetization. It has no magnetism and therefore lacks north and south poles to distinguish between them. If we plug our ears and place our fingertips on someone's lips, we won't hear the person speaking, but Helen Keller could. The reason is that we haven't undergone conscious training. The creator of the universe created human beings, but did not grant us extraordinary hearing. Instead, our range of hearing is limited to 20 to 20,000 hertz. We are unable to hear sounds outside of this range. If we were able to hear infrasound and ultrasound, our days will have no peace. The sound of our heartbeat would be louder than drums. The sound of brushing our teeth would be like the earth shaking, and the sound of drinking water would resemble the roaring of the Victoria Falls. How could we bear such intensity? Everything has a sound. Any movement generates sound. When a jet plane takes off, it creates a deafening noise. However, if the frequency of its sound during takeoff exceeds 20,000 hertz, it becomes silent. In reality, it is not truly silent, but rather beyond our range of hearing. There are certain sounds we cannot hear because we are ordinary individuals, and only a few exceptional people can hear them because they are extraordinary beings. There are certain sounds we cannot hear because we are listening with our ears, while some individuals can hear them because they are listening with their consciousness. The thoughts and activities of the human mind have sound. The processes of conscious thinking have sound. These sounds accurately and unmistakably reveal the inner world of every individual to the vast world. Consequently, the greatest creator also accurately and unmistakably knows the nobility and baseness of our inner world. In Chinese history, many extraordinary individuals emerged who possessed knowledge of numerous mysteries of the universe. They warned us, even whispered words are heard by heaven like thunder, hidden intentions are seen by divine eyes like lightning. Keep your heart pure and your thoughts clear. Desire no guilt in the open. Offend not in the unseen. In all matters, advise against concealing the truth, for within 3 feet above your head, there are divine beings, and so on. They explicitly conveyed to us that any activity within our inner world generates a sound that may be inaudible to humans, but is distinctly heard by the greatest creator and gods and Buddhas, resonating like thunderous lightning. Jesus, Shakyamuni, Laozi, and others have left us with wisdom rather than the mysteries of the universe. Jesus explicitly stated that pearls should not be thrown to pigs, and that he spoke in parables so that those with wicked hearts would not understand. Shakyamuni also primarily spoke for those on the path of the Mahayana. Laozi similarly understood that if the petty-minded individuals were to grasp the mysteries of the universe, it would bring endless harm. Life Genuine has made the greatest efforts and has led everyone to the edge of the mysteries of the universe. Looking at human history, the current state of human hearts is worse than before. In truth, humans no longer qualify to continue existing on this beautiful blue planet. However, gods and Buddhas are unwilling to give up and still want to make one last effort, even though the chances of realizing this desire are only 1 in 10,000. Everything within our inner being is heard without omission by the greatest creator. Similarly, the greatest creator selflessly communicates his intentions to each and every one of us. The reason we cannot hear the voice of the greatest creator lies in the fact that our spiritual perception, consciousness, has become deaf. We have been misled by appearances. Our consciousness is too chaotic and restless, and we lack concentration and focus. Shakyamuni sat under the Bodhi tree for 7 days and nights, fully concentrated, before hearing the voice of the greatest creator and attaining enlightenment to become a Buddha. Any individual who can hear the voice of the greatest creator will undoubtedly achieve Buddhahood. The souls can resonate with one another, and extraordinary consciousness can hear the voice of the greatest creator. May all beings become Buddhas, distinguishing the truth from the false. Xiefeng. When I was young, I followed my parents to the fields to weed. The wheat was less than 3 inches tall, the field a lush green, seemingly without any weeds growing amidst it. Yet, my parents bent over, carefully pulling out the weeds one by one, while my task was to move the uprooted weeds away from the wheat field and pile them together. Once, while observing the neatly stacked weeds, I thought I discovered a mistake made by my parents. With a proud yet reproachful tone, I called out to my mother, "Mom, you've mistaken the wheat for weeds. Bring it here, let me see." My mother responded. Excitedly, I brought the uprooted wheat to show my mother, aiming to prove her wrong. However, without even looking at it, my mother said to me, "Compare it to the wheat growing in the field. See if it truly is wheat." I compared it repeatedly, but I was still convinced that what she had uprooted wasn't grass but indeed wheat. "Mom, I am sure what you've pulled out is wheat." My mother then, with a gentle smile, had me squat down and said, "Look, this grass is called barnyard grass. It looks almost like wheat, but upon careful observation, there are differences. The color of barnyard grass is slightly darker than wheat. Its leaves are a bit wider, and when you touch it, its leaves are not as soft as wheat. This barnyard grass has a stronger vitality than wheat. If we do not pull it out now, it will absorb all the nutrients nearby, hindering the wheat around it from growing well." I earnestly compared it again and found my mother's point to be completely accurate. I mimicked her actions, searching the field, and discovered many barnyard grasses that looked like wheat among the seemingly wheat-filled field. I uprooted one barnyard grass and asked my father to identify it. He glanced at it, his dirty hand touching my head, and praised, "My child is so clever." At that moment, the pride I felt was no less than Columbus discovering a new continent. Now, I can also tell the difference between barnyard grass and wheat. But as an adult, I've been deceived time and again. Why cannot I distinguish between the wheat and barnyard grass among people? Bull can distinguish between horses, identifying the outstanding ones among the many, discerning which are inferior, which are good runners, and which are exceptional. This ability, akin to my parents' differentiation between wheat and barnyard grass, requires considerable effort and stems from long-term observation and analysis. It's a skill that's challenging for an amateur to master. Thus, I admire all those who possess such skills, and I realize that in every matter, it requires experts to make judgments. The flamboyant words of novices not only create confusion but also distort the truth, making it difficult to distinguish between true and false, right and wrong. I imagine how wonderful it would be if in this world, all novices refrained from interfering in matters of experts, refraining from meddling in what they do not understand, refraining from casually writing articles to critique. What I cannot comprehend is why those with shallow understanding and superficial skills are so fond of criticizing and commenting on philosophy, thoughts, politics, arts, and spiritual studies. Without deep expertise or unique talent, how do they comprehend the deeper truths? Why not be a bit humble? Displaying one's limited knowledge only shows shallowness and immaturity. Boasting shamelessly only signifies arrogance and conceit. Unconditionally affirming or denying only reflects ignorance and foolishness. Denying the greatest creator is due to dull spiritual perception. Negating deities is because of worldly eyes. Not acknowledging other spaces is due to ignorance about non-material and negative universes. Human understanding of the mysteries of the universe and life is quite limited. So why deny it? Our vision, our hearing, are confined to a relatively narrow and limited area, but through perception, we have the capability to transcend these limitations and enter an infinitely vast space. With such a beautiful future, why not explore? Why not pursue? I see that human society is filled with isolated lakes that do not connect to rivers and oceans. Christianity, Buddhism, Islam, Taoism, science, they're like individual lakes. Evolution, the Big Bang Theory, genetic studies, socialist theories, capitalist theories, democratic theories, human rights theories, and more. They're like drying up small ponds. Why not connect them to understand and contemplate? In his book, Morals, Naked Ape, physicist Mr. Jam Kaming vividly likened this situation to studying the elephant's toenails, legs, tail, ivory, ears, without anyone truly studying the entire elephant. If there were someone studying the entire elephant, those studying just the toenails or tail would sneer. What? I cannot even figure out the elephant's toenails thoroughly, and you claim to understand the entire elephant? The fable of the blind men and the elephant tells us that if we confine our thinking to what we've touched and cling to our biases, we'll never understand the complete picture of the elephant. We'll forever remain in endless debates of the elephant is a pillar, the elephant is a wall, the elephant is a rope, the elephant is a fan, but we'll never unravel the eternal question of which came first, the chicken or the egg. In the past 20 years, many knowledgeable, aspiring, and idealistic people have been exploring ways to end authoritarianism. However, very few have explored from the perspective of studying the entire elephant. Most have confined their vision to the narrow field of elephant toenail studies, leg studies, focusing solely on emperors, political parties, and systems, as if you could both nurture fish and grow crops in water equally. I lack profound moral virtues, but I've learned from my parents how to distinguish wheat from barnyard grass and understand the method of integrating human culture. But how many are interested? Continue with your debates. Enlightenment from famous brands. Xiefeng. At the end of last fall, I bought a Zhang Shaoquan kitchen knife from a Chinese store in Vancouver. I cherished my new knife but failed to use it for a long time until I lost my old kitchen knife last month and finally began using it. It was easier and handier to use, and the good experience that it provided was like a cow eating lotus or removing hair from yak butter. A quality product is easy to use and works really well. The old kitchen knife was eventually found, but I never used it again until yesterday when I placed the Zhang Shaoquan in the sink after I had cut some meat and picked up the old kitchen knife unconsciously when I needed to cut some vegetables. The moment I held it in my hand, I found it to be quite unpleasant, and it was at that moment that I realized the value of the famous brand. 10 years ago, Xintao Celestial gave me a Philips razor which is still good after I had used it for 10 years. Then, I accidentally lost a small holder while cleaning my hair half a year ago, so I had to buy a new razor at 100 Mile House. I bought one of the best ones in that store, but it did not work well and failed after only a month. I eventually found the small holder for my Philips, but although I wanted to use the new one, it did not work well, so I returned to using the Philips. The advantage of the Philips is that after charging it for slightly more than 10 minutes, it can be used for about 20 days. After 10 years, the battery is still intact. In addition, it feels comfortable in my hand, shaves cleanly, never pinches me or pulls any hairs out painfully, is fairly silent, and the original blade is still sharp. From these two examples, I have concluded that whether it is appliances, clothes, or other utensils, it is best to use quality brands if one can afford them. They might be more expensive, but in terms of long-term benefits, they are more cost-effective. Thus, I realized that people can also be divided into various grades. If you can get acquainted with, interact with, and cherish quality brand characters in your life, then your blessings will be great. Brand characters are like Zhang Shaoquan kitchen knives and Philips razors. They always make people feel comfortable and bring them wisdom, joy, safety, and tranquility, but never disturb them or make them feel uncomfortable. The benefits of getting along with brand characters are many. The greatest wealth in life is being able to meet and cherish one or several of them. I can be considered a blessed person because when I counted the treasures in my spiritual warehouse, I found several brand characters worth mentioning. Two male secular friends are Shui Binyi and Lu Jinkai, 2 male Chanyuan Celestials are Tongtian Celestial and Qinxi Celestial, and 3 female brand Celestials are Huiying Celestial, Jingying Celestial, and Xiangrui Celestial. Their common features are that they all have rich personalities and first-class quality. They are picturesque like mountains and rivers or poems and paintings, high in taste and state, treat me sincerely and without deception, have never made me feel uncomfortable in the slightest degree, and have helped me a lot. We should cherish brand objects while using them and treat them with awe because they are expensive, and do the same with brand people. When facing the brand people whom we are lucky enough to have in our lives, we can only venerate and admire them in our hearts without the tiniest secular affection or lust. It is best to enjoy them as quietly as you would appreciate peerless landscape paintings. Never take them down and hang them up repeatedly. When several government websites described Life-Chanyuan as a cult several years ago, I, as its godfather, immediately broke off my relations with Xue Binyi and Lu Jinkai because I did not want to negatively impact the futures of my best friends. Sacrificing oneself and protecting brand friends is the best way to cherish and respect them. Brand objects have exquisite structures, high quality, and long service lives, making them easy to use. Brand characters have rich personalities and are transcendent, lofty, exquisite, sincere, selfless, and desireless beyond words. They are inexhaustible spiritual sources from which one can benefit for a lifetime, so they should only be admired without the slightest profane thoughts. Of course, there are still many brand characters who are worth cherishing in my life, most of whom are Chanyuan Celestials. I hope that my existence will be valuable and useful to my dear friends, and I pray that one day my relationships with Chanyuan Celestials will no longer be as ones between a tour guide and tourists, but rather those of close friends. It is not easy to meet brand characters. Not only does it require a gift from the greatest creator, but also the matching of one's own quality. It is even more difficult to become one. It takes a lifetime of self-cultivation and self-refinement to hope to accomplish that. A person who never meets a brand character throughout their life would not know that there are mountains beyond mountains, how high the sky is, or how lush the land can be. They would always use old kitchen knives without knowing that Zhanzioquans exist, but always think that all kitchen knives are the same. This is both pitiful and pathetic, just like a woman who has never experienced an extreme orgasm never knows what it is really like to be a woman. I hope that I can become like a Zhang Shaoquan kitchen knife or Phillips razor one day. Everything has a sound. Xiefeng. As long as there is movement, vibrations will occur. With vibrations, waves are produced. And with waves, sound is generated. All moving machines make sounds. All living animals produce sounds. All growing plants have sounds. Plants grow with sound. White clouds drifting across the blue sky have sound. Butterflies gracefully dancing among flowers have sound. Mosquitoes buzzing as they suck blood have sound, and the movement of the intestines has sound. Flowing water has sound, and even seemingly still mountains, rocks, and the earth itself have sound. This is because they are not only moving with the Earth's rotation and its revolution around the sun, but also because the molecules within them are in motion. Any frequency of oscillation produces sound. The crashing waves of the sea have sound. Animals running and walking on the earth have sound. Birds flying in the sky have sound, and signals emitted by television stations, radio stations, communication towers, including the signals from our mobile phones, have sound. All light has sound, not only the radiant waves of the sun, but also the faint glow emitted by a lit candle has sound. The flowing underground springs have sound, blood flowing through our veins has sound, and the upward flow of nutrients within the branches of ancient trees that have lived for 100 years also has sound. The brain has brain waves, the heart has an electrocardiogram, and our mental activities, thinking consciousness have sound. The universe has sound, empty space has sound, positive objects have sound, and negative objects have sound. The greatest creator who created everything in the universe has sound. Evil kindness. Xiefeng. The noble die for their confidence. As someone influenced by Confucian culture, I also hold this view of life. While I doubt whether I could die for a confidant, walking the path with those who understand me, sharing joys and sorrows, is what I pursue. Drinking tea, chatting, climbing mountains, traveling with those who understand me always brings a sense of delight. True friends are hard to find in life. Although they say, grass is green everywhere under the sky, in this finite life, if one finds a confidant, discovers a patch of green grass, and fails to cherish it, assuming there's an abundance ahead, they are likely to miss opportunities and regret for a lifetime. If we do not walk with those who understand us, should we stay with those who do not? Repay kindness received with gushing gratitude is a value I adhere to. When someone helped me at a critical time, pulling me out of a predicament, guiding me out of confusion, showing me hope, healing wounds, how could I forget the pain? Repaying kindness is the virtue of a true gentleman. Repaying kindness with enmity is the conduct of a petty person. Before going abroad, I encountered a confidant who was the CEO of a limited industrial development company that I met after starting my own business. I mentioned his name in the postscript of Life Genuine, saying, "Meeting you during my journey, receiving your help is like being nourished by the rain. I throw a spiritual beam toward the sky, wishing you a smooth journey ahead." This is my blessing for him and for all the other confidants I've encountered on my life journey. After going abroad, I discovered a massive potential market. In gratitude, I soon wrote to this CEO, informing him about the considerable profits from overseas markets. He was excited and promptly replied, appointing me as the manager of the company's overseas department. Everything was running smoothly for a while. To expedite progress, I made a request to the CEO. "I need to rent an office, set up a telephone, and buy a car. Please have the corporate headquarters consider this request." Anyone who has run a company overseas knows that an office, a fax machine, and a car are basic necessities. However, those who haven't traveled abroad might think riding a bicycle or taking public transportation suffices. Stalled. After my request, I received no further response from the CEO. Later, I learned that the hitch occurred due to several vice presidents, the CEO's spouse, and caring friends who concerned about him. Upon learning of my request, they cautioned him, saying, "Be cautious, do not fall for his tricks. This person is ambitious. He might be a fraud." A great opportunity, capable of bringing the CEO immense wealth, fizzled out, vanished, and miscarried. This happened in the name of kind concern. Later, the increasing success and growth of many Chinese compatriots in this place confirmed my initial judgment. Instead of the kindness and warnings from those around the CEO, if he had taken swift action and seized the opportunity, this industrial company would have evolved into an entirely different entity. Upon pondering this for a long time, I realized the kindness around the CEO was a kind of evil kindness. Evil kindness always presents itself as sincere, considerate, caring, and "it's for your own good." Yet, it consistently sets invisible obstacles in the way of others' development, ruining their bright prospects. You must be careful. Be cautious not to fall for it. Always be cautious of others.